A different perspective, a new insight into life, a nugget of positivity and a hidden truth, and maybe an amusement for you. Welcome to From My Standpoint, a twice-a-month podcast with your host, Josh C. Jones.
Hello, I appreciate you tuning in again to From My Standpoint. I'm your host, Josh C. Jones. If this is your first time listening, then I thank you for tuning in, and if it's not, well, thank you for coming back. And don't forget that if you prefer to read, I suggest you check out the blog at the website www.fromtheirstandpoint.com. That's from THEIR standpoint.com, where I will sometimes add links and some extra information that may not be in the podcast. This one, however, might not have a blog, unless I decide to actually transcribe this.
Why transcribe it? You always write the blog before you do the podcast script, don't you?
Not this time, Random Voice of Questions. I know. This is highly unusual for me on this show to release more than one episode at a time, and to actually improvise a portion of them. But there is a reason for this. Also, I have a bullet point type list here, so don't worry. I have a little bit of a note of when voices come in and when the audio snippets are to be played, because I'm going to have a little teaser for upcoming episodes as well. In the teaser episode, of course.
How is it unusual when your show is still so very new?
It's unusual, Random Voice of Questions, because the plan for the podcast show was to only release one episode every 2 weeks.
Then why are you releasing this episode now?
That is a great question, Random Voice of Questions. The reason I am trying to do this, and I want to release this episode now, which is, again, out of the ordinary for what I wanted with the show, it's because a few friends have already given me their input, or as you might say, advice, opinions, or critique, their perception of the shows that I have released thus far. Those being episode 1, my first post, or is it, where I briefly introduce myself and then I talk about the importance of standing up for yourself and what you believe in and telling your story. And then episode 2, Focused or Blinded, Who is the Enemy, which seems to actually be a big hit so far, where I broke down what we are seeing in our society today and I related it to a video I saw on YouTube that really does help get the visualization of that topic across. And so, actually, that's the only 2 episodes I've released so far. And I've already got some really good critique from some really good friends and just other people. I'm surprised, especially that episode 2 has taken off as much as it has. But anyway, one of them gave me the input that my shows were actually short and didn't have much information to them. Kind of like, I need more cowbell. Yeah, like that little stupid thing. Anyway, so when they said that, I thought, what? So that I just went back and re-listened to them and, they might be correct. I don't actually have a lot of, data or quoted information in my shows as of yet, but that is done for a reason. And so I just wanted to get that out there and let you know. I want people to try to see from a different perspective, such as the tagline, changing the perspective for a better understanding. And I want people to ask questions. I want them to think critically about what they see and hear and are told to believe without question. I want them to be better informed, and I want them to be free to build upon their perceptions and to strengthen their foundations. I want them to do the research on their own to answer any further questions or new questions that they might have about a topic, especially after listening to one of my episodes. Kind of like what I did with episode 2, Focused or Blinded, Who is the Enemy? How I talked about, that lion attacking the gazelles and the gazelles were fighting each other. And when we're fighting our own, we are blinded to the attack of the enemy. And the reason we're usually fighting our own is because we were set to hate each other and to fight each other because of what the enemy implanted in our minds through whatever source of evil or lie or propaganda they may have used to confuse us. At least that's how I perceived it. So I don't want the shows to just be kind of like, a lecture in a classroom. I think we can remember that in high school or college. Sometimes they're just boring. As you know, I have done some of my own research to find any further understanding for myself, but I don't want to be the person or have a show that just takes the listener by the hand and does all the legwork, all the research for them. I just want to be a jumping point, kind of like, I guess, a springboard for the listener. I want the listener to be able to come to their own conclusion and make their own choices from any information or perspective that I discuss on the show, rather than just taking what I say as absolute and running with it without any further thought or questions or research or understanding. Of course, I have my own perceptions built on my own understanding, research, personal experiences, learning, my unique life, and the contacts and relationships I've created in my life through the work that I have done. I also believe my foundation is cultivated and built upon an absolute, unshakable, immovable foundation of truth. Anyway, if my show becomes the absolute, with no personal thought or further research from the listener, if that happens, really, I would first be flattered that someone thinks that highly of me and of the show. But then I would also see myself as no better than the news media or politicians or some other podcasts and some other high-profile people and, sadly, some teachers who act as gods on all subjects they talk about and demand silence and compliance. Zombies, if you will, of the people listening, and demand complete obedience to, I guess, what they say without question or thought or common sense or personal choice from the listener. Now, this doesn't mean in any way, shape, or form that, they aren't right sometimes. But for myself as a teacher in training, I understand that the job of a teacher and the job of one generation to the next, and the job of a free citizen living in a free country with God-given, inalienable, and constitutional rights is not to control others through force or to seek absolute power, but to help guide and cultivate that inquisitive mind and to help build a life of understanding. Not complete acceptance and participation in activities or lifestyles that go against one's beliefs, mind you, but true tolerance and understanding, so that we and the next generation and those we are talking to might be better equipped to make better choices for our lives and learn to respect all human life for the individuals we are. That is, each person's individual character, built by their own choices to listen, to try to understand, to respect one another, to not bully or try to coerce one another to their way of life and their perception, and to show true tolerance, not this new tolerance of oppression and suppression for submission to my perception or your perception or his perception or her perception, and to grow a good moral and right foundation. Now, read my books when they are published. The books Volume 1, The Foundation to Your Success, and Volume 2, Your Foundation in Action, to learn a lot more on these subjects of foundation and tolerance and other subjects that relate to that foundation. See, and I bet you didn't think I'd be able to kind of ad-lib or get my books in here like I do some of the other shows. But I did. So other than, of course, talking about my own books, I have no other personal agenda to create, I guess what you'd call mindless drones who just parrot what I tell them to. I just want people to think for themselves, to grow in their knowledge, to build upon their understanding and compassion and perceptions of the world around us or them, and to try to learn from one another. More importantly, I want people to search out the truth, not their truth or individual truth based on an individual's perception of which they believe is more important than the truth, than facts, than evidence, than history, than context, etc. I want people to understand that, as the saying goes from, I think it's John 8:32, and the truth shall set you free. The truth, not my truth, not your truth, not a truth, but the truth. My truth, your truth, a truth, those are all perceptions and opinions. They're not the truth. And as I say in, I believe it was episode 1, my first post, or is it? And I think I'm going to get it right here. Bear with me. By avoiding open and honest, that is truthful, by avoiding truthful discussions about topics and factual data is facts, evidence, the history, the true history, context, and the truth, and perceptions. Perceptions are opinions, experiences, personal beliefs, personal desires, or agendas. So by avoiding open and honest discussions about topics and factual data and perceptions, we nullify any true desire or attempt to truly find any common ground or make any lasting and positive changes to the perceptions of any issue or problem. To find a lasting, positive, and right fix to most perceived issues requires acceptance of the data and facts and the truth, which only comes from independent research and the willingness to understand that perception is not truth, and it doesn't always point to root causes. It's just a starting point. It's how we perceive things based on our life, our experiences, our understanding, the education we've chosen to follow and accept. Anyway, that is why, although I would be flattered and excited for someone to fully believe what I say without question, as a possible future teacher and as a person pushing for a better understanding, I think that I would fail if I did not leave some gaps and encourage the listener to pursue their own independent research to further their understanding and enlightenment in some areas. Like I said, I want this to be a starting point, like all education should be. It's a starting point. It's not the be-all, end-all of your learning. But I can understand that critique of it being short, not having enough information. I understand that. Because sometimes I do listen to shows and, podcasts because I want the detailed information to back up perceptions and to back up the truth, to find the truth. And I do have a few shows written where I do offer a lot of information or facts, evidence, and the truth to support what I'm talking about in that episode, to support a perception and to explain some of the history, the true history, and to get a better enlightenment for myself and the listener to the context of something, to the context of the topic. Because a lot of times we just seem to ignore context. I'm not sure why, but we do. Believe it or not, though, those episodes are sometimes more difficult to, not just, I don't know. You just have to hear them. I mean, since in those you're dealing with topics that I know some people have a different perception on and deeply, deeply, I guess I would say, don't like, or sometimes they just absolutely hate people to even bring up something in that topic that is opposite of their perception. So, yeah. Also, another one told me that I should not explain so much and I should stop trying to be funny. Like my opening joke in episode 1. Yeah, that was an absolute dumb joke. I will admit that. It was forced and even I thought it was blah, but I liked it as a lead into a laugh track that I do want to use multiple times and I do use in future episodes because I just think it's funny and fun to have a laugh track.
Why? Why have a laugh track?
Well, I like it. There's really no other reason, Random Voice of Questions. It's my show, so why not? But that person also told me that the first episode was a bit long, and that kind of confused me. Like I said, one said they were short, one said it was long, one said there was no information, and one said not to explain so much. I was confused. So I asked for some clarification from them, to which they said it just sounded read. It didn't sound natural. And that I completely agree with 100%, at least in that first episode. But I really do think I've gotten better with the future shows that'll come out. I hope. Anyway, part of the advice was to not be so read, like I said, to be more natural. So I want to speak freely and not have a full script on this episode like I have on all the others. I think these shows and the information in them are very important. If not, I wouldn't be making these podcasts, of course. But as for the other characters in the show, this is a critique I got as well. I was advised to reduce their involvement if I have them in it at all. Now, this is some great advice, and advice I would normally take to heart and implement right away, especially since I fully trust this person's critique. I fully trust what they have to say about entertainment and making the shows, I guess, in their perception better. However, these voices and the characters, they are a part of the branding for my show that I actually enjoy and I like as well. But they do bring up a good point. I need to work them in a little better so it feels more natural, especially compared to that first episode. And, well, as one film teacher always told me in the past, let your first be your worst. So I hope that is the case here. Not that I want any of the episodes to be bad, but I hope I just get better and better after that first one. Now, I do hope that you are enjoying these shows, and I hope that you are being encouraged to find more answers for your life and to change some negative perceptions to make your life better, happier, and just overall more prosperous. If you have not yet subscribed, then I encourage you to subscribe to From My Standpoint to ensure you receive a reminder when new episodes are released. You can follow me on Facebook at FM Standpoint, on Instagram at From My Standpoint, or visit the website www.fromtheirstandpoint.com. That's from THEIR standpoint.com, and click on my show, From My Standpoint. All right, and now for the part everyone has been looking forward to.
Is this where you be quiet now?
That wasn't very nice, Random Voice of Questions.
That was a rhetorical question, and an example of you not heeding your good friend's advice about being funny.
Oh yeah? These people think I'm funny, don't you? And now, what you've all been waiting for, it's the wisdom of Dad Joke. Sometimes people question, why do people sometimes ask for critiques, even knowing that some, if not most, might be negative? It is not just critiques, it is criticism we like. It is constructive criticism. The critiques or constructive criticism, the constructive critiques, that is, are valuable for growth, understanding, and to ensure your message or story is being received. Misunderstandings happen all the time, and without constructive criticism, one's message might fall short and the receiver might miss the context of the message or question, much like when I was at the video store. There was a movie playing that, well, for the scene that I saw, I thought the movie was very interesting. So I asked the clerk, "What's this movie about?" The clerk looked at me and said, "It's about 90 minutes.
This has been From My Standpoint, a podcast to find a nugget of positivity and a hidden truth, encouraging and enlightening insight, entertaining a new perspective, and providing an amusement for you. We hope you were entertained, encouraged, enlightened, and enjoyed the show.